This is the Mass Trails Grant follow-on meeting. And we're going to be pretty informal here because we're a small group. All of you should have received from me just my little cheat sheet of ideas and the people and the time frame for the grant. So I'm going to do what I've been doing for each of these meetings and just put in the chat what is possible, and that goes more to time frame for the grant. What is possible? What is the project? What project might we pursue if we decide that it is possible to go forward? And then also, what are the next steps? So those are the things that I wanted to get from this. And Beth, do you have anything that you want to add? And I'm going to be using the chat because it's a good place to record things while we talk.
Oh, that sounds great. Thank you.
All right. So, Beth, jump in at any time. Oh, look, Jen is here too. Excellent. Mm-hmm. So welcome, Jen.
Hey, Jen. How are you?
Hi.
We have just started. So Emmy's here again. She's the rec commission, the director of the rec program. I don't know if you know, she was on the last call we were on too. So
yeah.
And Bonnie Fitzpatrick, who you may not know, she's the assistant director for rec. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
And Beth, planning board administrator, and you know Dave. So anyway, so just to get started, I did expect Bill Cadigan to be on this call. He's the only other person that I would think would be coming on. So anyway, the application deadline for this is February 1st. So that means we have pretty much exactly 2 weeks to do this. So I guess the first question for us to consider is, what is possible? Is that possible? Any thoughts on that? Or should we talk about the project and then go back to what is possible? Beth?
Has anyone had experience submitting a Mass Trails grant, I guess would be the question. Before you know what's possible. Has anyone been through the Mass Trails grant process at all here?
No.
Okay.
I have not. Dave, have you?
No, I haven't.
Anywhere? I mean, not even in Townsend, but anywhere else?
Okay.
All right. So I put down ideas. Let's come back to what is possible. One of the things that we talked about in the grants meeting last week were kiosks and trail maps at the trailheads for all the town trails. Another is maintenance and restoration of old Meeting House Park trails. And the other thing that seemed like a possibility is purchase and lease of trail-related construction and maintenance equipment. That's something that the Parks and Cemetery and Parks Commission might be able to use if they are the ones doing the work on the trails. Go ahead, Emmy.
So Bonnie was fantastic. She actually sent me the application template earlier today. So I was just going back through it again and looking at the criteria. Like, the application itself doesn't look like it's very difficult. Like, the questions, et cetera, don't seem like they're very difficult. It doesn't look like it needs an engineering study or any big hoopla. They're looking for a project and proposed costs, et cetera. But if you get into the criteria, they're in the, are you ready for the proposed phase? And keeping in mind, this requires a 20% minimum of us paying into it. Correct. As well. So we're talking about February 1st, 2 weeks from now, whatever we come up with, we need to have 20% on our end as well. But they are, go ahead.
And not only that, it is a reimbursement grant. This is so you commit to 20%, but you have to pay all of it up front and you get back 80%. So
Right. So as I'm looking at this, are you ready for the proposed phase? Previous planning work supports the phase. Appropriate community input and outreach has been completed. Environmental permitting and right-of-way challenges have been identified, and alternatives and solutions have been explored, and have a plan in place for ongoing required maintenance once the project is complete. And they're also looking for have funding in place or a plan for funding subsequent required phases. And they're looking for diversity. So anything that we do, they want to make sure that it's equitable. So I think, I hate to be Debbie Downer here, but unless we have something really great in place, I'm thinking we need to look for next year, not this year. But I don't know what's already there.
all right, my thoughts on this, and then Dave, I'd like to hear yours and Jen's thoughts on this as well. Not to put, everybody's thoughts, but I typically this grant is the application is due in around November 1st. I've looked at this grant in the past. I've never applied for it, but we've looked at it with Land Trust in the past because nonprofits can apply for this, and also combination nonprofit and town can apply for this grant. It's usually due in the November 1st or 15th, I'm not sure which it is, time frame. But this year they pushed it out to February 1st because of the fact that we didn't have a budget in the state until December 17th. So because of that, it's late. And most of the people that were thinking about this have already done their work. So, and I wasn't looking at this for November 1st, trust me. But they brought this up in the MJTC meeting. So it was like, okay, throw it out there. But my feeling is that right now we would be better served as a town getting our open space plan updated. And then with keeping meeting, doing all the requirements there, looking at Old Meeting House Park. And I know that the trails up there right now, it's all pushed up. You can't even access the trail on the town side easily. You can get in on the Land Trust side, but not on the town side. There was a huge tree that fell down a few months back right across that trail. And then the bridges, and I have pictures of the bridges out there, they are in sad shape. They need to be, all the wetland crossings need to be redone. The good thing about looking at Meeting House Park is there are funds specifically targeted for Meeting House Park from the tree cutting that was done up there maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Those funds were specifically targeted, and that's where you, Dave, probably know more about this than me, as far as what's in that account and what it can be used for.
Yeah, just if I could just pop in here just for a moment.
Sure.
You're right about that. I mean, there are funds that have been allocated specifically for Old Meeting House, and they have been historically, over the last number of years. And I believe that number, and I could be wrong, but it's somewhere plus or minus, $30,000, I believe. So yes, that money can be accessed through the commission if a plan of action for stewardship is put together. And we vaguely talked about this, and I don't know whether or not the town has really taken this to task. I do know that Jen Eaton, who's a member of the commission, has vocalized some concern about stewardship in general, which we may get into at our next agenda. But more importantly to the topic here, yes, Old Meeting House is one of several suggestions I think that you and others have provided that are certainly viable options. I just had a couple of real quick questions. I want to go back to Emmy if I could, please, and I don't mean to put you on the spot by any means.
No, it's not whatever
Excellent.
you got.
Yeah, really, and I apologize because I have not seen the template that you're referring to, the template that would be utilized for this application process.
It's online. It's online.
Okay, thank you. So nonetheless, I'll look at it on. I think I heard you say that there's certain permitting processes that have to go through in order to, if they're required as such, as a part of it. the application process. And I'm wondering whether or not those permitting processes have to take place prior to the application, or whether or not, irrespective of if we do this now or later, if those permits have to be drawn and drafted with orders specified to them as a part of the application. And that's something, I'm being rhetorical here, that's something I can look into if no one knows the answer right now, but nonetheless, I'll look into it. Because I just don't want to have that put in our way as a potential roadblock, not having addressed that particular answer.
So
Are you
the way
talking about wetland?
Specifically,
wetland,
yes.
specifically wetland
Jurisdictional areas under the Wetland Protection
jurisdiction
Act
on
and
the
the bylaw. Yeah.
on the trail. Oh, so the bridges, right? The bridges and that.
No. I'm talking about whatever plans that are ultimately that the town wants to see proceed under this particular grant. I'm just suggesting, as on the conservation side, if any permits might be required as a part of the application, in advance of the application, or can it be grandfathered or grandpersoned into it as the application process goes? And
it does, in section 4, it talks about cultural and natural resources protection, and it does have questions, and wetlands and waterways is part of that, below ground archaeology, rare and endangered species, Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act, and it does ask a bunch of questions about those. It doesn't necessarily look like you have to have anything written in place, but what it does say is things like, have we had any communications with them? Does it meet or exceed any thresholds for MEPA? Is primarily what it looks like for that sort of thing. And for permitting, the questions underneath that, it says, that's really all it goes into for that. Is it about how we're going to avoid, minimize, or mitigate any impact to these resources?
Okay, so then if we get back to the, and not to interrupt you, but if we get back to go back to the beginning, if it's my understanding that if we have a grant opportunity or a proposal for a grant, which we would provide through this template, would those particular, obviously those particular aspects of the conservation piece have to be addressed? And if the grant we sponsor or the state sponsors has exposures jurisdictionally, goes back to my question, which you can't answer.
Well, I think you're getting too far into the weeds on this, Dave. The trails up on Old Meeting House Road are Conservation Commission owned trails.
But I'm not focusing on Old Meeting House right now. I'm talking about any other ideas that come in from the public that might be sponsored under the state grant. There could be other ideas out there for that use of that money. Yeah.
Absolutely. But I think that we as a town should be focusing on the town trails that we have jurisdiction over. So if we as a town are applying for the grant, we are applying for our trails. We aren't looking for outside people to come in and apply for things. It's only available to towns and nonprofits. At the beginning of it, Emmy, there should be the wording there for who is qualified to apply.
But that wasn't what I was referring to. What I'm saying though is that, and perhaps I'm misstating myself, which won't be the first time. Agreed with everything you say, Veronica, but I guess underneath all of that, are there any other projects on town-owned trails or trails that the town has an interest in that the public might have an interest in as well?
Well, we had a meeting last week.
Yeah, I attended that
and
meeting.
Nobody else has come forward. And the ones that we had focused more on Old Meeting House Park. There's also Howard Park. I mean, Howard Park could use work too. Nobody knows where the entrance is off of Howard Street. If you walk if you go in at the middle school and you walk out over the bridge and come up on Howard Street, okay, I can find it that way. But if I try to go the other way, I'm not sure if I'm walking on private property or
Sure.
on that.
I've done that.
Can I ask a question? Would it be prudent to refer to the 2015 Open Space and Recreation Plan? Does that plan identify any projects or areas where trail work needs to be done?
No, it doesn't. Old Meeting House Park, it was acquired just before, and that was the impetus for writing that open space plan.
Okay, so
it expired. It has now expired. It expired in March of 2020.
Yeah, but my question is, can we refer to what kind of goals were in that recreation plan? I haven't read it, and I apologize, but can it be referenced for a grant of this nature?
Yeah, I believe so.
Good.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be. You can just say, I have this park, or Leominster bought a trailer and filled it with tools that any organization like the Boy Scouts or NOLA Service Learning or the town itself or their recreation commission, they could use for trail work. So they used this grant for that.
Oh, nice.
Other places have done it for kiosks and things like that. I used to go to the Montechusett Trail Committee meetings down at MRPC, and they were very involved, several of the people at those meetings, in applying for these grants in past years. So I don't think we have to make it too complicated.
So are you suggesting then perhaps that we defer this particular deadline and look at it in the near future when it's...
I think we should continue to meet to look at what needs to be done at Old Meeting House Park and do that first because it needs done. And I think people in town would appreciate having the trail, and we could put ADA access in there and up at the end of it's a perfect spot for it. Same thing on Howard Park. We could see about ADA access there because it's equitable access. We are not a social justice community necessarily, but we do have to provide access for everybody. And ADA access is one thing that we could do and look at that for both of those parks. I think we should look at what we have and move forward with the goal of an October application for the November grant, assuming that the November grant. I see that we have a raised hand. Jen, thank you.
So I just want to say, I think deferring it for the year is a good idea because there are some issues out there that need to be addressed as far as clearing the trails, and that can all be done with a volunteer type program.
Hang on one second. Could someone, I don't know who's not muted, but maybe muting would be good.
These can be configured in settings.
Okay, thanks. All right, go ahead.
So I think that if we had volunteers out there clearing the trails, it would be a good way for people to get familiar with what really could be possible with a plan out there. And that's something that needs to be done sooner than later, because last time I was out there, there were people cutting trees and not from the town. There were just people out there who had done their own tree work to get through. And there's other things that, just I think if there's people out there working on the trails, it'll give you a sense of compiling data for what could really happen and what really needs to happen with, respect to getting a plan and moving forward with the grant.
So do you have a suggestion for how to get people out on the trails?
Yeah, I have people that are willing to volunteer for trail clearing and yeah.
So that could be the start of a stewardship committee.
That could very well be the start of a stewardship committee.
Yeah, Jennifer and I actually talked about this earlier, and recreation is the same. We'd be happy to put a shout out and say, hey, one of the things that we find a lot with those that are already participate in recreation activities is that they're already forward thinking to physical activity as families. And so I think that could be very beneficial. We talked a little bit about, having the community buy in to what we're trying to do. And I think that Dave alluded to that.
Yeah, no, I didn't do any of that.
With this. So I think that could be a really good shout out to sort of get that information out to the general public and to publicize what we're trying to do.
I guess I'm going to ask everybody to mute unless you're speaking, maybe.
If I could just make a point in response to Emmy real quick here. You're absolutely right, Emmy. I mean, one way to get started is just through, community activity or community activism. And I do know, and the town that I live and also other towns and commissions with whom I speak to and their agents have had an enormous amount of activity on their trail system, not only local, not the nonprofits that are local, but also the town owned. And as a consequence of COVID, those trails, albeit, are being accessed so much more than they have been in the past. We had actually put out not that we had to do this, and I alluded to this at our last hearing, but it was under a different set of circumstances. It's short money, and a doodle poll, I believe, really captures or potentially can capture ideas that people might have and know about trail maintenance, trail stewardship, land preservation. It might, we might only get 100 people responding, but at least that's 100 more people responding than we did yesterday. And if we're able to pull together resources that the town has in different departments, particularly going back to the conversation that Jen E had with Emmy, I think that those kinds of conversations interdepartmentally would go a long way, particularly with that and a combination of community outreach. I can't say enough, how effective the doodle polls have been for me in my experience outside of Townsend, particularly when it comes to areas of conservation and environmental preservation, because that encompasses multiple departments, not only recreation, but also the Board of Health, building, et cetera, et cetera. And, one step forward is better than none at all. So I'm really a strong advocate of land stewardship, and I understand that the town doesn't have a significant number of town-owned properties as such in comparison to others, but that doesn't diminish the importance that they have to the residents. And back to Veronica's earlier point about, Meeting House Park and Jen's observations. I mean, yeah, there's a significant amount of work that has to be done out there. And I'm really grateful that we have an opportunity either through this grant or just through discussion that may help ignite a desire by others to also contribute to that particular park, which is, a real resource to the town.
So Dave, did I hear you volunteer to put together a doodle poll to send out?
I heard that.
Yeah,
you heard that too.
I will try. Believe me. If I need assistance, I know where to get it. So, and actually, if I could participate, or I could have the participation of folks that are on this call and perhaps others to give me some ideas about specific questions or guidance in terms of how they want the poll to be done. But I believe I can get my hands on some boilerplate or template.
So Dave, why don't you send us, because I write up minutes after each of these, and I'm putting an abstract together to report back to the Board of Selectmen on Tuesday at our meeting.
Sure.
So I will put you down as developing the doodle poll and sending out an initial set of questions to all of the people on this call, and then we can get back to you with other ones.
That'd be terrific. I'd be more than happy to do
and
that.
we can get that out there. That would be good. We could probably use maybe the mailing list through the town website. I don't know. I think there is a mailing list, so maybe we could send something out and say, hey, respond to this doodle poll.
Well, we could just put we could put it on our new webpage.
We absolutely can. I'm looking forward to that. So yeah,
that'll be good. That'll be good. It'll get people to our new webpage, right? Yeah.
Right. That's right.
I will say that we did a survey for National Fitness Campaign, and we had hundreds of responses, all very positive going forwards for it. So I agree with Dave that a survey is a really great idea. Whether or not that means anything in the long term, at least it gives us a direction, I guess is the best way to put it, for deciding factors. And yeah, happy to help it on our end. We have a couple of Facebook pages, email lists, again, for our families and the community members that are connected to recreation already. And I'm more than happy. Bonnie's new with us, and this is, I'm going to volunteer her. No. Go with it, Bonnie. You're good like this. Woohoo!
Is that a new word you coined?
Yeah, that's the volunteer. I do it with my husband a lot. It's that I get him involved in all sorts of activities that he's actually volunteered for. But no, I think that I like the idea of a poll. I like the idea of the survey, and I like the idea of having some impact and input into those questions. Are we specifically going to be targeting the old Meeting House Park, or is the poll going to be more of a centralized outdoor parks, trails kind of question? I guess is my only thought.
Well, one of my initial thoughts, and I welcome yours for sure, is that we identify those trails that are used with some regularity here, and draw up questions about each particular trail system, and let people respond. I don't know what those questions. I know what the questions would be, but I'll share them with you at some other point. And you folks also input as well with the questions. And the idea here is to create it as user friendly as possible. I had just gone through this process recently, and we got just under 1,000 responses, not 886 responses, which was good. And it gave me and another outside of a really good baseline of what people think and what they think of the system and the trails, and what we should do as a town to make them more accessible, maintained, user-friendly, as well as seeking people out who would be willing to contribute towards that end. Saying and doing land stewardship are two different things. I mean, we can. Believe me when I tell you this, you can talk, not you, but we can talk, or not we, but I'm talking the totality of everything. We can talk about land stewardship or whatever the topic is. It's not unless you really affect action, when you see a result. So hopefully when we leave this meeting tonight, this is one of the things we take away and we really create some action on, because the grant opportunity is terrific. I like the idea of the deferral. It gives us an opportunity to pull together, a pretty well documented and researched baseline as we put the grant proposal together.
Have we thought beyond a little bit of direction, since we're looking mass trails, talking to groups in the area? Specifically, like, we have running groups in this area, we have cyclists. Have we thought about, is there a way if we can specifically target getting their information, because they do use it a lot?
I mean, that's an excellent idea. Excellent idea.
Evans on the Common would be fantastic, and I'll talk with Matt. He's one of our commissioners, and see if Evans would be willing to have something up there that directs people to our poll. And what we're trying to do, because again, they sell so much of the outdoor stuff, and they're right there by Howard Park. It might make a lot of sense there. Same thing with the ice cream place, once the time goes up, because we've got all the families that are also out and about. But I kind of feel like if we could target, I know, I have we have a run page, my husband and I, and there's other groups, cycling groups that are local, and the Squanicook River Runners, a bunch of them live in Townsend and in this area. So it might be good to really take a look at those we know already use the trails, as well as trying to attract those that may not be even aware that we have them yet.
That's a terrific idea. I mean, the outreach that you're suggesting is well beyond what I would have thought of, and I appreciate that. That's excellent.
Jen, your hand is still up. Are you?
Yes, I re-raised it. Sorry. I just wanted to mention, with respect to Howard Park, I know that a lot of people in town would love to see a restoration of that life course because it's in disrepair, and it would be a real wonderful thing to have that back and up and running.
And recreation, that is something that recreation's talked about because it's something that we do want to use future forward for programs that we do for our, again, health and wellness. So I'm in on that one as well, if that comes up as part and parcel of putting together a comprehensive grant for our trails. And if we're looking at both of those as a combined unit, but beyond just the signage, but actually putting that life skills back together would be pretty awesome, really. Getting rid of like old tires and stuff that are out there, and again, longer. I'm trying to think beyond, like, let's just do this and make it clean for next spring, like that longer term use as a community, I guess. And Jen, I absolutely agree with you. I think that's, we talked earlier, definitely a passion, and I feel that from you, and I appreciate it.
Thanks.
I'll just say on the life course piece, that's the one where if we do go for a grant to restore it, we should think about maintaining it, because that was what was missing from it. When we moved here in 1985, it was a good life course. It was, I used it then, and then it just, disappeared. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's a good suggestion and would fit this grant.
Veronica, would that tie into your thinking about the, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you had mentioned somehow we could tie this particular grant into, was it urban planning, I believe? Or urban development? No?
I think that was from the grant meeting. There was someone that was talking about an urban development grant.
Sure.
And
I see. Okay.
I didn't write a whole lot down about that.
No, it's okay.
You're right. Someone mentioned it, but we can rewatch that meeting because Hartley has it up on YouTube.
There you go.
So we can review. That's the good thing about having YouTube up. I see Emmy is pulling something out there.
Yeah, I was just taking a look at, there's one specifically that I've been looking at, but there's a dozen more that are connected to this. But the USDA has a bunch of different programs underneath theirs. The paperwork that I currently have in my hand, it has to do with community facilities. So if we were looking to put together some sort of, clubhouse that went with our parks, that had all the information and they could, sign up for things, that would be under this portion. But I do know that there's other things underneath those USDA grant areas.
Right.
And
a lot under those, so.
Yeah, they have a lot. And the only thing with these is that they're very much like the TIP ones that involve a whole lot of other stuff, like, median range of housing costs and incomes, and there's all sorts of like stuff that all belong to that as part of the rural development. But it would not be off to look. And again, see if we can tag, instead of redoing work over and over again, try and tag as much of that information together at one time so that we can feed one grant off to the next one.
Okay, so what I think is we should keep this conversation going. Going up to my chat, what is possible? I think we're not going to, our decision is not to apply for this for February 1st. It's just too short a time frame. But to continue to work forward with a possibility of in the fall. Having an application together of some sort. And what I will volunteer to do is call and talk to the grant administrator at Mass Trails and see what those, their thoughts, throw out some of our thoughts and see see what she thinks. And that's okay with everybody.
It's excellent. Yeah.
We'll approach. Okay. And then Dave, you'll get together a doodle poll.
Yes, I will.
Well, some questions anyway, and ship them out to us, and we'll ship back some more.
Absolutely.
And with the goal of perhaps forming a stewardship committee, so put that question in there. I would like to be on a stewardship committee or something like that, but with that goal, because we will need that to keep things sustainable going.
Absolutely right.
And then we'll continue to meet, maybe monthly, in another month after we get doodle poll results. That's your action item there. My action item is to talk to the administrator, and we'll meet again in about a month. And maybe we'll have doodle poll results. I'll get that on the website, our brand new.
That's right.
website.
You're going to have people, our new website's going to explode with activity.
Just thrown with Jen, because we talked about it earlier, and we talked about it in other meetings where other of these grants. Visuals are always great. So especially if we're going to put things up on the webpage and ask people to be connected to it, a visual is a really great way, or even a short video. So Jennifer, my friend, who also loves the trails, what do you think? I'm doing some already for one of the other ones, but it's street access stuff. It has to do with, street accessibility. But what do you think about trying to hit Old Meeting House and Howard and sort of do either some short clip videos or some photos of what we're seeing as really like almost danger zone for using our trail system?
Yep, I'm all in on that.
Sweet. Sorry, I don't really mean to talk over. I'm sorry, you guys. So if I'm overstepping, just cut me down.
Excellent ideas.
Okay, so I have Dave down for a doodle poll,
That's
me
right.
down for talking to the Mass Trails Administrator, and Jen, I have you down for the visuals for our
The visuals. Yep.
wonderful website, which probably won't be up. Our target had been February 1st, but I think it'll probably be mid-February till we really have it.
Good.
I just signed off on the design today, so now it's content. We get shifted to the content people, which is why we have the meeting next week. But that's off topic.
So Veronica, if I could just ask, when we go through the process of this grant, and understood, I believe we get 20% reimbursement. It's a reimbursement grant. Mm-hmm. Do we have to put together does a town warrant have to be drafted or not? Just curious.
I know that for the MVP grant we did. For Mass Trails, it's much less formal. But we would have to have, like we included things like people's hours, that, like you, Dave, doing the doodle poll or, anything.
I understand, right.
Do. Your time could be part of the match, so we used a lot of time matches for that, less funding matches.
On the MVP grant, right, I recall that.
If Conservation Commission, without a town meeting, can sign off because it's reimbursement. So depending on how much money we put into, if we put in less than whatever the max is in the bucket, if Conscom is willing to say, okay, knowing that you'll get reimbursed afterwards, if that doesn't have to go to town meeting, then I'd have to find out for sure. I'd have to talk to Jim and find out, but if you guys have access to that and it's discretionary for the Conservation Commission.
I like that thinking. I like that thinking. Yeah, tying one in with the other. Yeah, good thinking.
Otherwise, we'd have to put something onto the annual town meeting.
Right.
And so that makes it a shorter, time frame as far as thinking about it goes and getting everything done. So
Okay.
Do you want me to find out about that?
Yeah, I mean, due course for sure, but you certainly. I thank you for thinking through and as I am too, specifically the money we have in the two funds that are available to the commission and to the town, and how we might be able to access them in lieu of future reimbursement. Yeah, that's good.
I mean, we certainly wouldn't want to empty those funds.
Oh, no, of course not. And, and the commission, it goes before the commission anyway, and they'll be the ones to make the decision on how and when, et cetera, the funds can be used.
I'll find out about access of funds in town meeting. This is more of we're working with a look towards the future for a Mass Trails grant. So I know that this one is less, it's less formal than the other grants you might go, like a park grant or things like that. This is a less formal kind of thing from a funding perspective. So, all right. So have we looked at what is possible? What is the project? I guess the project is keeping this going with an eye to a future, looking at what needs to be done on trails, et cetera, and with an eye to a future grant application for whatever we determine needs done. And what are the next steps? We all have our jobs, I guess, and we'll meet again, maybe in a month, maybe sometime in February, unless, Dave, you think we need a formal meeting around the doodle poll. But if we can do that just with emails, that's good enough.
Yeah, that's terrific. And I'll get, let me see what we have here. Could you folks send me your email addresses, Emmy and Bonnie?
Yeah, we're the townsendma.gov, just first initial.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I'm being redundant. I'm being redundant. Sorry about that.
That way, Dave.
No, not at all. But yeah.
No,
well, we just got it though. I mean, I was a Yahoo for 7.5 years.
Oh, okay.
So you're not redundant. It could have been a very different answer. But yeah, like the first initial, last name with the new email addresses.
I'll try. My goal initially will be to get out some questions to you folks early next week. Just something informal, something to think about. Yeah.
And I will write up an abstract for this, just like I have for everything, and discuss it at the Board of Selectmen meeting on Tuesday. And Excellent. Dave, if you and Jen want to do the same at conservation, that might be a good idea.
Absolutely.
And then we'll go from there. So, and Rec, I know Rec is all in.
And actually, our next Rec meeting is 20th, I believe. I believe our next Rec. So that actually comes great in time. The BOS meeting the night before. So we'll make sure that one of us is at least one of us is attending that as well, so that we can, follow up with whatever our commission needs to do.
Okay. And I am sending you, Emmy, the Shared Streets and Spaces abstract. I have that one done. Great. So you'll get that tonight. And
wow.
I'll have the rest out. So
awesome.
Right. Beth, do you have anything you want to add to this? Is she there?
She here?
Yeah, I'm still here. No, I just want to say thank you, everybody. This was great discussion. And whatever I can do from my desk, let me know.
All right. We don't have a task for you yet, Beth, but there are other ones.
This is good right now.
You sure?
All right. Thank you.
All right, take it easy. I'll be in touch with you guys.
Everybody.
Thanks for pulling this together.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.